The cafe on 9th and Jefferson wasn't the kind of place anyone wrote Yelp reviews about. Dee's Diner had been around since the 70s, grease-stained menus, linoleum floors that curled at the edges, and the same cracked vinyl booths for the past 20 years. But for some folks, it was home. And for Marlene Thomas, it was survival. At 6'2" and close to 300 pounds, Marlene wasn't someone you'd miss in a crowd. She moved with a quiet grace despite her size. Always gentle, always careful not to take up too much space, even if the world never extended her the same courtesy. At 30 years old, she'd spent the last 12 of them refilling coffee cups and balancing plates like a pro. Her laugh was warm, and her eyes carried a kindness that softened even the surliest morning commuters. But lately, things had started to change. Ever since the new chrome and glass monstrosity opened across the street, the Wilkins Business Center, a steady trickle of suited men had begun to flow into most of them came with smug faces and corporate swag bags, crowding the booths at lunch, tapping impatiently on their phones. They didn't like the food, didn't leave tips, and more than once Marlene had caught them looking around like they were slumming it. That Tuesday started like any other. "Morning, baby," called Rosie, the short-order cook, as Marlene tied on her apron and pinned her name tag. "Morning, Rosie," she replied, flashing a tired smile. "Got any of that cornbread left from last night?" "Stale as hell," Rosie grinned. "But yeah, I saved you some." By noon, the place was packed. Truckers at the counter, Miss Angela in her Sunday hat sipping sweet tea in the corner, and at table 7, 3 men in tailored suits, laughing loudly over barely touched burgers. Marlene approached them with a practiced smile. "Y'all doing okay here?" she asked, holding the coffee pot with her gloved hand. The youngest of the three, short, wiry, probably early 30s with licked back blonde hair, smirked. "You tell me," he said, looking her up and down. "How does a woman like you end up in a place like this?" The table chuckled. Marlene blinked. "Excuse me? I mean," he continued, leaning back arrogantly, "you're like an Amazon or something. You ever think of doing sumo wrestling? Or do they have size limits?" The laughter got louder. Even the older guy at the table covered his mouth, embarrassed, but not enough to speak up. Marlene's jaw tensed. "I'm here to pour coffee, not listen to nonsense," she said, voice steady. The man stood up suddenly, knocking his chair slightly. He was much smaller than her, maybe 5'6". His face reddened. "You got an attitude problem, sweetheart?" Marlene didn't move. She looked him right in the eyes, calm. "That's enough." He took a step toward her, too close, jabbing a finger toward her chest. "Don't tell me what's enough. I don't take orders from barn animals." That word hung in the air. Someone gasped. Fork clinked onto a plate across the room. Marlene's body locked. Her breath hitched, just slightly, and then he lifted his hand like he might slap her. A stupid, performative gesture. Instinct kicked in. She stepped back, lifted her leg, and delivered a firm, controlled front kick straight to his chest. Not hard enough to break ribs, but hard enough to send him stumbling backward into his chair, which toppled over as he crashed to the floor in a heap. "That's shut!" Someone screamed. "Who?" And then, a click. A phone camera. Then another. The man groaned on the floor, coughing. "She attacked me." Rosie was already behind the counter yelling, "Call 911. "No need," Marlene said, her hands trembling slightly now. "I didn't attack. I defended." The police came within minutes, but by then, the video was already making rounds. A customer had posted it to social media with the caption, "Big lady takes down racist shrimp at Dee's Diner." That night, Marlene sat in her small apartment above the laundromat with her niece Shalais, who stared wide-eyed at the viral clip. "Auntie went full Marvel on him." "I didn't mean to," Marlene sighed. "He scared me." Shalais laughed. "You kicked him like a superhero. You looked powerful." Marlene didn't feel powerful. She felt exhausted. There was a knock at the door. She opened it to find Angela from the diner, holding a pie. "I figured you could use something sweet," the old woman said. "Thank you," Marlene replied. "But you did right, baby. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Man had it coming. "But now people know me as that woman who kicked a guy in a diner," Marlene muttered. Angela smiled. "They'll also know you as that woman who didn't take no mess. It's about time the world saw that." That night, Marlene couldn't sleep. Her phone buzzed non-stop. Friends texting, news outlets asking for interviews, strangers sending messages of support and hate. She stared at the screen. One message read, "You showed grace and strength. Don't let them shame you for defending yourself." But another said, "Typical violent thug. Should be fired." Her job. That was the real question. Would she still have one in the morning? The aftermath of the incident spread through the cafe like a wildfire. Within hours, the video had made its rounds on social media, a shaky, low-resolution clip showing the moment a tall, full-figured black waitress struck a much smaller white man in a tailored suit with a whiffed and surprisingly agile front kick to the chest. The man staggered back, landing awkwardly on a chair, and the video ended in gasps and shouts. Marlon, the cafe owner, was furious, not at Merlin, though his face was a storm cloud of stress, but at the chaos surrounding his normally quiet establishment. You should have walked away, he said, rubbing his temples as he stood in his cramped office, the buzz of his phone constant on the desk. He swung at me, Marlon, Merlin replied, arms fall, dead tightly over her apron. You saw the footage. I didn't hit first. I know, he hissed, but now we're in a mess. He's some tech investor, billionaire, got a big following, political friends, legal sharks. Merlin didn't flinch. Her voice dropped an octave, slow and deliberate. He called me a gorilla in a waitress uniform, Marlon. Then he said, and I quote, I'll put you back in chains where you belong. Marlon winced, eyes closing. Jesus, I'm not sorry I defended myself, she sighed. D flatly. He sighed. You might have to be, M. His PR team is already spinning this. That you attacked him. That it was racially motivated against him. They're throwing the angry black woman trope all over this. Outside the office, the cafe's usual din had become hushed. Patrons were avoiding eye contact. Staff tiptoed past, unsure whether to offer solidarity or silence. Merlin walked home that night with her head held high, but her chest tight. She lived in a modest apartment in a working-class neighborhood, not far from where she'd grown up. Her mama used to say, don't let them shrink you just cause you take up space, baby. She had always taken that to heart, in every sense. That night, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications pinged with every refresh. Some were supportive, others vitriolic, racist, threatening. Go back to Africa, you violent monkey. She's a danger to white men. Fire her now. This woman's a hero. She stood her ground. Protect her. Her Nike. Kendra, a college student with a fierce mind and a smart mouth, called her in a panic. Auntie M, they're talking about you on TikTok. They're twisting it like you attacked this man for no reason. Merlin sat on her worn-out sofa, rubbing her temples. Let them talk, baby. I've got nothing to hide. But she was lying. Not about her actions, but about how scared she was. This wasn't a simple bar fight. This was about power, perception, and race. And the man she'd kicked? He was already pulling strings. The next morning, she showed up to work early. A camera crew was parked across the street. A white woman in heels stood in front of a cameraman, microphone in hand, reading from her notes. Merlin walked inside, ignoring the flashes. Marlon met her at the door. They're saying you're suspended pending an internal review. I figured, she said calmly. But listen, he added, lowering his voice. There's the civil rights lawyer. Black woman, brilliant. She reached out last night. GHD. Wants to talk to you. Merlin raised an eyebrow. Already? Yeah. Said you might need help before this thing gets ugly. Merlin sat alone in the back storage room, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound. She stared at the wall, thinking about the way that man had looked at her, like she was nothing, and then about how it had felt to push back, to not shrink herself for once. She knew this was just beginning. The next morning began with a nervous buzz. Merlin sat at her tiny kitchen table, clutching a chipped coffee mug, her eyes still heavy with sleep. The events of the previous day had replayed in her mind all night. The look on that man's face when she kicked him, the flash of someone's phone camera, the way people whispered as she walked away, her hands shaking, her heart pounding. Her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a news alert or a message from a coworker. It was her manager. Rhonda, manager flashed across the screen. Merlin sighed and answered. Hello, Merlin. Rhonda's voice was tight, urgent. You need to come in. Now. What's wrong? There are reporters outside. And cops. And that man you kicked, he's here. With a lawyer. Merlin's stomach dropped. She felt suddenly cold, despite the summer heat streaming through her kitchen window. He what? She whispered. I don't know what's happening, Rhonda said. But they're asking for statements. And they want to speak to you directly. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Merlin hung up, tossed on her worn-out work uniform, and tied her long braids up into a high bun. As she left her small apartment, she felt the weight of dozens of unknown eyes pressing down on her. When she arrived at the cafe, a small crowd had gathered outside. Mostly people with phones, some with microphones, others with those fake smiles that only reporters wore when it smelled scandal. A few customers watched nervously from inside, sipping coffee and pretending not to stare. As soon as Merlin Shed opened the glass door, Rhonda rushed over. They're saying you assaulted the customer, she whispered. The man claims you attacked him without provocation, that you used excessive force. Merlin stared at her. He swung at me, Rhonda. He called me a. She stopped herself. Her chest burned. He lunged at me. I defended myself. Rhonda nodded, but she looked scared. There's video, but I haven't seen it yet. Have you? No. Just then, a short, pale man in a navy blue suit approached them. He looked maybe in his late 30s, with slicked back blonde hair and an expression so smug Merlin wanted to slap it off his face. "I'm attorney Mark Bellamy," he said smoothly, not looking at Merlin but at Rhonda, "representing Mr. Philip Green, who suffered an unprovoked assault by one of your employees." He finally turned to Merlin, eyes narrowing slightly. "You'll be hearing from us." She was defending herself, Rhonda said, standing up straighter. "There's video," the lawyer repeated. "And why the looks of it, it doesn't favor your employee." Merlin took a slow step forward. "Then show it." Bellamy looked mildly surprised, then pulled out his phone. A few people gathered around, including a young woman with a press badge who raised her eyebrows with interest. The video started, a grainy clip from someone's phone. Philip Green, red-faced, standing far too close to Merlin, says something that the video doesn't pick up clearly. Then Merlin says, "Don't touch me," and steps back. He lunges. She kicks. A powerful, clean movement, straight to his chest. He stumbles, trips over a chair, crashes to the floor. Gasps from the crowd watching the video. "She warned him," the young reporter said. "You can hear it." Bellamy's face turned slightly red. "That doesn't change the fact that this man was threatening her," the reporter cut in. And she defended herself. Suddenly, the power balance shifted. Merlin could feel it in the air. Later that afternoon, the cafe posted an official statement online backing Merlin. Rhonda had reviewed the video again and again with the owner, who ultimately sided with his longtime employee. Public support began to pour in. "She protected herself, and she did it better than most people could," one commenter wrote. "Imagine calling a tall, black woman gorilla and then crying when she kicks your racist behind," wrote another. It didn't take long before the video went viral, not just because of the confrontation, but because of how Merlin kicked, the precision, the strength, the speed. People were stunned. "She moved like a pro," someone tweeted, "like she trained in martial arts or something." Someone else joked, "I'd cast her as the lead in an action movie." Big Sister just is coming soon to theaters. Memes, GIF, think pieces. It was everywhere. But Merlin didn't feel like laughing. She sat alone in her apartment that night, scrolling through the chaos, feeling exhausted. She hadn't asked for this. She hadn't wanted attention. She just wanted to do her job in peace, without men like Philip Green treating her like garbage. Her phone buzzed again, this time a private message on Instagram. "Hi, I'm Jordan Pierce, talent scout. Are you open to talking?" Merlin stared at the message. What was this? She typed back slowly. "Talking about what?" Merlin stood in the tiny break room behind the cafe's kitchen, staring at the flickering fluorescent light above her. Her shift had ended an hour ago, but she didn't want to go home. Not yet. The weight of what had happened and what could happen next pressed down on her chest like a concrete block. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. From unknown number. "You're trending on TikTok, lady." That kick was wild. She sighed. It wasn't just TikTok. It was everywhere now. News blogs had already picked up the video under headlines like, "Waitress drops racist exec like a sack of bricks, David vs. Goliath." No, just Goliath with a round. D-House kick. "This is why you don't mess with women in the service industry." Some were supportive. Others were calling her a violent thug. It was polarizing, like everything on the internet. She hadn't meant to become a viral sensation. She hadn't meant to become a symbol. She just wanted to serve coffee, earn her tips, and keep her dignity. The door creaked open. Carla, her manager, peeked inside. "You got company." Marlene furrowed her brows. "What kind of company?" Carla shifted her GHT nervously. "Guy in a suit. Real sharp looking. Says he's with I think he said Castro Ruiz and Klein." Marlene's eyes narrowed. That was a high-end PR and legal consulting firm downtown. What would someone like that want with her? She followed Carla to the front of the cafe. Sitting by the window was a tall, thin white man in his early 40s, impeccably dressed in a navy blue suit, tan leather shoes, and a silk pocket square. He stood when he saw her. "Miss Marlene, is it?" he said with ASM. "Oh, I'm Lucas Granger. May I speak with you privately?" "I'm not buying anything," she said bluntly, "and I don't have money for lawyers." He chuckled. "I'm not here to sell you anything. Quite the opposite, actually." She crossed her arms. "Then speak." Lucas gestured politely. "May I sit?" She nodded once, and they both sat. Carla gave them space but lingered close enough to listen. Lucas leaned in. "We represent a number of high-profile clients, some corporate, some political, some say culturally significant. One of our clients, Mr. Stanworth, the man you kicked, has asked us to facilitate a settlement." Marlene stiffened. "He's suing me?" "Not quite. He's concerned about his image. As you may know, he is a partner at Easton and Relman, and this video is beginning to impact his standing. His firm has placed him on leave. There's pressure from shareholders." Marlene blinked. "So he's the victim now?" Lucas raised a hand. "I didn't say that. In fact, he's not interested. In taking this to court, he'd prefer the matter disappear. Quietly, she eyed him. Our offer is as follows: a non-disclosure agreement in exchange for $50,000. You'd agree not to speak to the press, not to pursue charges, and not to appear in any interviews. Marlon laughed out loud, bitterly. He wants me to stay quiet for 50 grand? Lucas raised his eyebrows. It's a considerable sum. You think 50 grand erases what he said to me? The fact that he tried to hit me? As voice remained calm. Miss Marlon, the internet is fleeting. In a week, there will be another viral clip, a new outrage. But your name, your face, it's already out there. And that can come with complications. Jobs, safety, even social harassment. We're trying to protect both parties. She stood up. Tell your client to keep his money. I'd rather mop floors for the rest of my life than help that man save face. Lucas sighed and stood as well, adjusting his cufflinks. Very well. Just no th. There are others who may reach out. Journalists, activists, even people who claim to be on your side. Be careful who you trust. I've been careful my whole life, she said coldly. That's why I'm still standing. He nodded politely, offered a business card, and left. Marlon crushed the card in her palm. That evening, as she walked the cracked sidewalk back to her apartment, she passed by a corner store with a tiny television in the window. It was showing the local news. Her face was on screen. And again, this time, it was an older black woman being interviewed. I'm proud of her, the woman said. We've been told to sit down and shut up for too long. That girl didn't attack anyone. She defended herself. Another clip followed, this time a young black man with locks. They always call us angry, but when we defend ourselves, suddenly we are dangerous. I hope she gets a lawyer and sues the pants off that guy. Marlon stared at the screen, uncertain how to feel. She had never wanted a 10, but something inside her stirred. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was the years of biting her tongue and swallowing humiliation for a tip. Or maybe it was something else. She kept walking. The next day, she returned to work. Half the tables were full by 9 a.m., a rare sight. Some people weren't even ordering. They just wanted to sit, hoping to spot the woman from the video. Marlon kept her head down and took orders, moving through the morning with robotic precision. But around 11:30 a.m. something unexpected happened. A woman in a navy blazer walked in with two other people, one carrying a camera, the other holding a clipboard. Local news. The reporter smiled at her. Marlon, I'm Jasmine Pierce, Channel 5. I know this is short notice, but would you be willing to speak with us? Before Marlon could answer, Carla rushed over. She's not doing interviews. We're a business, not a circus. But Marlon raised a hand. It's okay. Carla froze. You sure? Arlen nodded slowly. She followed Jasmine outside, where they set up near the sidewalk. The camera rolled. Jasmine smiled. Marlon, thank you for joining us. Many are calling you a hero. Others say you acted inappropriately. What do you want people to know about what happened? Marlon took a breath. I want people to know I was just doing my job. I didn't ask for a fight. I didn't want to be on the news. But I'm tired of pretending this stuff doesn't happen. I'm tired of being told to smile when I'm being insulted. I'm tired of being afraid. She looked directly at the camera. I defended myself. That's not something I'm ashamed of. And if that makes me a symbol, so be it. But I'm not going away. By the time Monday morning rolled around, the video had gone viral. Over 2 million views. Morning shows were already mentioning it in passing, usually framed as a bold response to workplace harassment or a viral clip sparking discussions about race, size, and self-defense. But the full story wasn't out there yet. Merlin didn't go to work. She couldn't. Her phone buzzed every few seconds with messages, some supportive, others hateful. Her manager had texted asking her to lay low for a few days. That was code for we're scared of the attention and don't want you around. Merlin wasn't surprised. She'd worked there 7 years, and the loyalty had always felt one-sided. She sat on her worn couch, still in her oversized t-shirt, staring at the TV where a split screen showed the video, her, in slow motion, delivering that defensive kick, and next to it, the frame of the man stumbling backward, mouth open in shock, coffee flying. She remembered his face now. His name was Trevor Langford. He worked in the glass tower next door, came in twice that week, always made comments. The second time, he leaned close and said in a hushed voice, loud enough for everyone to hear, you people should stick to the back kitchen, not stand around where the customers eat. And when she told him calmly to step back, he laughed and said, what are you gonna do, roll on me? Then came the raised hand, a flinch, a threat, or worse, and her foot responded faster than her thoughts. Her aunt called, Merlin baby, you okay? She nodded, even though her aunt couldn't see it. Yeah, just tired. You need to talk to a lawyer. I know someone from church, he's solid. Don't wait for them to come after you, you hear? I don't even know if I'll have a job to go back to. You might not need it after this, her aunt said. This ain't just about that, man. It's about what they think they can say to women like you and get away with it. That hit Merlin hard. She hung up soon after and sat quietly, tears burning behind her eyes but refusing to fall. She didn't want to cry, not for Trevor, not for her boss, not even for herself. Around noon, her doorbell rang. She rose, peered through the peephole. A woman stood outside, tall, pale, red blazer, clipboard eye in hand. Merlin opened the door a crack. Miss Gibbons? The woman asked. Yes, I'm Clara Sloan, with Civic Advocacy Journal. I was hoping to speak with you. Off the record, at first. Merlin hesitated, but something about Clara's tone was respectful, not hungry for gossip. She opened the door fully. An hour later, they sat at the small kitchen table. Merlin told her everything, not just the video, the years before it, the way customers sometimes ignored her or spoke to her like she wasn't fully human, the way her manager never stood up for her, the way people looked past her because of her size, or her skin, or both. Clara listened, took notes, promised to let Merlin review the article before it ran. That night, Clara's tweet, just a teaser, went up. Meet the woman behind the viral kick, a story of quiet strength, racial bias, and 7 years of invisible labor. It got traction. And then, something unexpected happened. Trevor Langford released a statement. Or rather, his legal team did. It was posted to several outlets. Mr. Langford deeply regrets the altercation and acknowledges that his words may have been misinterpreted. May have been. Merlin laughed bitterly. But it wasn't over. The next day, she got a call. Not from her manager, not from her aunt. From a woman named Leila Bennett, an executive at a PR firm. We'd like to talk about representation, Leila said. People are listening to you now, Ms. Devins. You have a voice. Let's use it. Merlin B. Lint. Representation? You stood up. You told the truth. That's rare. If you're open to it, there are people who want to hear more. On your terms. Merlin hung up the phone and sat back, stunned. It hadn't even been 4 days, and the world was shifting. The morning sunlight streamed weakly through the threadbare curtains of Merlin's small apartment. She sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at the phone in her hand. It was a new day, but nothing felt new. The phone had rung off hook these past few days, interviews, calls from lawyers, friends, even strangers offering help. But today, there was one call she wasn't expecting. Ms. Divins, this is attorney Leila Bennett again. I'm calling to follow up on our conversation about your representation. Have you given it any thought? Merlin took a deep breath. I have, and I want to do this, but on my terms. Absolutely, Leila said, her voice warm and reassuring. That's exactly how it should be. After the call, Merlin felt a flicker of hope. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was alone in the fight. Leila introduced Merlin to a small but passionate team of lawyers, publicists, and activists who specialized in civil rights and workplace discrimination. They helped Merlin craft her story, supporting her in drafting a statement that was powerful and honest, refusing to soften the harsh realities of what she faced every day. Her story spread like wildfire, not just a viral video, but a real human story about dignity, strength, and resilience in the face of racism and abuse. Merlin started receiving letters and messages from women all across the country who had faced similar struggles, thanking her for speaking out. But with visibility came challenges. Some of Merlin's co-workers started to distance themselves, afraid of the attention. Others faced pressure from management to stay silent or even condemn her actions publicly. Marlon, the cafe owner, struggled to keep the business afloat amidst the storm of controversy. Some regular customers stopped coming, while new ones arrived, curious and supportive. One afternoon, Merlin walked into the cafe and found a note slipped under the door. It was anonymous but clear, threats, veiled warnings to stop speaking out. Fear tried to creep back into Merlin's heart, but she pushed it down. She remembered why she had stood up in the first place, not just for herself, but for every person who had ever been silenced. As weeks passed, Merlin began organizing community meetings with Leila and the activist groups. They discussed workplace rights, racial discrimination, and how to empower others to stand up for themselves. Merlin's voice, once quiet and overlooked, now commanded attention. One evening, after a long day, Merlin received an unexpected visitor at her apartment. It was Trevor Langford. He looked humbled, the arrogance replaced by something like remorse. I wanted to apologize, he said quietly. I was wrong. You didn't deserve what I said or did. If there's any way to make this right, I'm willing to try. Merlin looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. It's a start. The weeks that followed transformed Merlin's life in ways she could never have imagined. Her story had become a catalyst, a spark lighting conversations far beyond the walls of her small cafe. Every Saturday, she hosted workshops in community centers and libraries, sharing her experience and teaching self-defense basics. The parents brought their children. Women of all ages came seeking advice and support. Merlin's presence was steady, her voice unwavering. For the first time in years, she felt empowered not just by the spotlight, but by the genuine connection with others fighting similar battles. Her relationship with Trevor remained complicated. Though he had apologized, there was an unspoken tension whenever their paths crossed. One day, during a community event organized to discuss racial bias in workplaces, Trevor attended quietly in the back. Afterwards, he approached Merlin. "I want to understand better," he said, voice low. "I've done a lot of thinking, and I realize how wrong I was. If there's anything I can do to help." Merlin studied him, weighing her years of pain against this moment of humility. "Actions speak louder than words," she said. "Show up. Listen." Shamed. Trevor nodded solemnly. "I'm ready." But the road wasn't smooth. The public attention brought both support and backlash. Customers left the cafe in protest, while others arrived in solidarity. Trolls flooded her social media with hateful messages, but the support from friends, family, and strangers kept her grounded. Leela and her team continued to advise Merlin, helping her navigate offers for interviews, speaking engagements, and even a book deal. Yet Merlin remained cautious. "I want to tell my story, but on my own terms," she told Leela during a meeting. "No sugarcoating, no theatrics, just truth." Leela smiled. That's why people listen to you." One evening, Merlin received an unexpected invitation. A local university asked her to speak at their annual diversity symposium. Nervous but determined, she accepted. Standing at the podium in a packed auditorium, Merlin shared her journey, the struggles, the pain, the fight. She spoke about the weight of stereotypes, the courage it took to defend herself, and the power of standing tall in a world trying to diminish her. The audience listened in rapt many moved to tears. After the talk, students and faculty approached her with gratitude and questions, eager to learn and support change. Merlin realized then that her story had grown beyond her own life. It was part of a larger fight for justice and respect. Months passed, and Merlin's life continued to evolve in ways she had never anticipated. The cafe where she worked had become a microcosm of the larger battle she was fighting. Some patrons came just to see her, eager to show support. Others avoided the place, their absence a silent protest. Despite the challenges, Merlin's spirit remained unbroken. She had found new strength in community, and her voice carried weight. Invitations to speak at events and participate in panels arrived steadily, but with public attention came pressure, expectations to be a symbol, a role model, sometimes more than she felt ready to bear. One evening, as Merlin closed the cafe for the night, her phone buzzed with a message from Leela. "Urgent. Meeting tomorrow with community leaders. We want you there." Merlin arrived the next day at a modest community center, where activists, lawyers, and local officials gathered to discuss ways to address systemic workplace discrimination and racial bias. Merlin listened as people shared stories, brainstormed ideas, and planned actions. When it was her turn, Merlin spoke candidly. "I'm just a waitress, but this fight isn't just mine. It's for every woman who's been told to stay quiet, every person who's been made to feel invisible. We need real change, laws that protect us, bosses who respect us, communities that stand with us." Her words struck a chord. The meeting ended with a plan to form a coalition dedicated to workplace equity, with Merlin as a spokesperson. Back at the cafe, Merlin's relationship with Trevor had softened. He occasionally stopped by not to argue, but to listen and learn. Their conversations were cautious but respectful, a testament to how far they both had come. One afternoon, Trevor surprised Merlin by helping clean up after a busy lunch rush. "You're not so bad at this," she teased. He laughed. "I'm learning." But the fight was far from over. Not everyone supported Merlin's newfound activism. She faced criticism from some who accused her of stirring trouble or overreacting. There were moments of doubt and fatigue. Yet each time, Merlin remembered why she started, to reclaim her dignity, to protect her community, to make a difference. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was a voice, and she wasn't going to be silenced. With the coalition gaining momentum, Merlin found herself swept into a whirlwind of activism and advocacy. Meetings, rallies, interviews, her days were longer and more demanding than ever. Yet, with each new challenge, her resolve only deepened. One rainy afternoon, as Merlin prepared for a public forum on workplace discrimination, she received an unexpected call from Marlon, the cafe owner. "Merlin, I've been thinking I want to support you fully. The cafe will officially back your work. No more hiding or distancing." Merlin smiled, heart-warmed. "Thank you, Marlon. That means a lot." At the forum, Merlin shared her story to a packed audience. The crowd hung on her every word as she spoke with honesty and passion. Afterwards, a young woman approached her, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for giving me courage," she whispered. "I'm going to stand up too." Meanwhile, Trevor continued to change, inspire, By Merlin's strength, he volunteered at local community centers, attending diversity training, and speaking publicly about his past mistakes. One evening, Merlin and Trevor met at the cafe after hours. "I'm proud of how far you've come," Merlin said. He nodded, a small smile breaking through. "I'm trying to be better." Despite progress, resistance remained. A local business group began a smear campaign against Merlin and the coalition, calling them troublemakers. But Merlin stood firm. Her journey was not just about one incident, it was about creating lasting change. And she was ready to fight for it. As the smear campaign intensified, Merlin found herself at the center of a storm she hadn't expected. Negative articles flooded local papers, accusing her and the coalition of stirring unnecessary conflict and hurting small businesses. Social media trolls escalated their attacks, with hateful messages filling her inbox daily. Despite the pressure, Merlin refused to back down. Supported by Leela, her legal team, and a growing network of allies, she fought back not with anger but with facts and compassion. She appeared on local radio shows, gave interviews, and spoke at community meetings, emphasizing the importance of dignity, respect, and equality for all workers. One evening, during a heated public debate, a middle-aged man stood up and said, "I was skeptical at first, but after hearing Merlin's story and seeing the change in our community, I support her completely." The room erupted in applause. Merlin's life had changed in ways she never imagined. From a waitress defending herself against racism, she had become a respected advocate for justice and equality. The cafe had weathered the storm, and many customers returned, inspired by her courage. Through it all, Merlin remained grounded, remembering the struggles of her past and the dreams she still held for the future. Her journey was far from over, but she faced it with strength, hope, and an unbreakable spirit. Several months later, Merlin found herself standing on a small stage at the city hall under the bright lights of a packed auditorium. The coalition she helped build had successfully pushed for new workplace policies focused on anti-discrimination and employee protection. It was a landmark moment not just for her, but for countless others who faced similar struggles. As she looked out at the diverse crowd, people of all ages, races, and backgrounds, Merlin felt a surge of pride. This as more than just her story. It was a collective victory. After her speech, she was approached by a young girl holding a worn-out notebook. "Miss Merlin," the girl said shyly, "I want to be brave like you." Merlin smiled, kneeling down to meet her eyes. "You already are. Keep fighting, no matter what." Back at the cafe, things had settled into a new rhythm. Trevor stopped by regularly, not as an adversary, but as an ally. Together, they worked to foster understanding and respect among the staff and customers. Merlin's journey had transformed her, not just in the public eye, but in her own heart. She was no longer just a waitress, she was a voice for change, a beacon of resilience, and a symbol of hope. Her story was far from over, but for now, she stood tall, ready to face whatever came next.